Hey everyone, Dean Willett with RETV. Today we're joined by Melissa Zavala. I get that correct?
Yes, you did.
She is the broker at Broadpoint Properties in San Diego County and also the head of the ShortSaleExpeditor, and her and her team have been responsible for receiving over 500 approval letters on short sales. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
You know, I personally do some short sales myself, and I think that one thing we really need to be worried about as agents is, just getting involved in the short sale process. Do you recommend that people, what do you think about short sale agents who get involved in short sales and they do 2 or 3 and then find out that, they're really a lot harder to do than they thought, more work intensive than they thought, and get out? Do you think that people should be looking for more experienced agents, or what's your thought on that?
Well, I hear a couple of things that you're saying, a couple of questions. The first thing is about borrowers hiring an agent to do their short sale, and it is super important that any home seller or borrower who is looking for an agent to do a short sale, that person really ask some good, compelling questions of their prospective listing agent to make sure that they have the experience with the banks in order to get the job done. Questions like, how many have you closed? How many have you closed with Bank of America? What's your experience with Chase Bank, or wherever the lien holder is? So that's a really important part on behalf of the borrowers. And I also heard you ask me, what do I feel about agents that just do a few? And they are very tricky transactions, and I actually got into doing short sales after I did 40 for my own husband, who's a local realtor and top producer, and we were at a very large franchise, and everybody was saying, Melissa, can you help me? Melissa, can you help me? And they were just so frustrated that I found that it's not for the faint of heart. You have to have be real detail-oriented and things like that in order to be successful. So I think that those are some key components to finding a listing agent to help you.
Now, as far as getting involved with short sales for agents, there are a lot of designations out there. I have my own personal opinion on designations. And do you think that agents should get involved with one, or where do you think they should for education?
There is a lot of education available. The local boards are a great place to go for education. I myself do provide a lot of classes and free webinars with education. There are a handful of designations, you probably do too, but I get a lot of emails every day about certifications for short sale, and I look into them, and they're not really what they purport to be, and I'm not sure what I'm going to get out of it. So anyone shooting for a designation really needs to look into, what is this? What am I going to get out of it? Is it really what I need? Because some can be very, very expensive. As far as I know, the only one that is approved by the National Association of Realtors is the SFR designation, and that's fairly affordable. But so if you're looking for a designation, I guess that's the one I would start with.
And, one of my concerns about a designation is, you sit down and talk to a client across the table who's looking to short sell their house, and you say, well, I have this 4-letter designation, and, it makes me a short sale expert. But does that mean that person has ever closed a short sale in their life?
Of course not. And of course that doesn't make them an expert. And that I hear you, just because you have, a bachelor's of science in chemistry doesn't mean that you can, do some sort of incredible chemical experiment. So I think that experience comes to play quite a bit in these kinds of transactions.
As far as the banks out there right now, Bank of America has a bad reputation. And I think that agents who are active working with Bank of America have hopefully seen a great improvement over the last 6 months like I have. What banks are you finding hard and more easy to work with right now?
I got some I was looking through my junk mail the other day, and I got a piece of an email from, I believe, an agent, but they didn't really identify themselves, and they emailed me and they say, why do you always write nice things about Bank of America? And I didn't respond because I wasn't even sure that this was an agent, but the funny reason is because I have seen that great improvement at Bank of America. In certain parts of the United States, Wachovia has a special fast track program, and you can get an approval letter in San Diego County, for example, in under a week on a short sale. So in certain states and certain cities, that Wachovia is awesome. The smaller banks are a little bit harder, I think, because they've got a smaller staff. We've got a local bank, which is deplorable. They could take over a year no matter how much calling and pushing, and even though we have the president's cell phone number. So definitely the bigger banks are improving. Some still are a little, I think Chase, depending on who your negotiator is, it can be slow or long, things like that.
Now, much of the news on short sales the last week has been about robo-signings and halts to foreclosures that Bank of America is doing in all 50 states. Do you see this robo-signing as much of a problem?
I think it's real interesting. The first time I heard about it, when it was on the news, it made me think about 3 years back when we were starting to see the economy fall. At least in San Diego County, people were hiring attorneys to stop their foreclosure, saying that it was an illegal foreclosure, just like the robo-signing thing. So I do think that it's really interesting, but to a degree, I think it's much ado about nothing. It is super important that all the lending institutions can be accountable for what they do, but we haven't really heard of too many cases where they've found flaws in the paperwork. In fact, Bank of America is going to be resuming their judicial foreclosures on October 25th, I believe, in the 23 states that do judicial foreclosure.
Yeah, I talked to an executive over Bank of America 2 days ago, and he was telling me, they've reviewed thousands of cases and have found no problems. I think what we forget on a lot of these is that if somebody's going to foreclosure, there's a good chance that they haven't made a payment on their house in close to a year.
Yeah, I know. And that's the crazy thing. And then you hear these stories about people who, they haven't made a payment for a year and a half, and then they fully destroy the house when they move out as if they're blaming the banks. At some degree, despite the fact that the recession has really hit a lot of people very hard, we have such a high unemployment rate. At the end of the day, unfortunately, if you've missed your payments, you've breached the note. And so it's just an unfortunate situation.
And when we sit down and talk to people about selling their house and they apply for a short sale, one of the first things they're going to hear from the bank often is, will you consider doing a loan modification? And we've all heard the success stories or the lack of success stories on loan modifications. So how do you advise your clients on these?
One thing I think people really need to know about a loan modification is that if you've hired someone to help you, and even if you haven't, the phases of the foreclosure process to continue to move forward during the loan modification review period. So I had a client call me last Friday and say, I have a foreclosure scheduled for next week, so Monday or Tuesday of next week, and I have hired this loan modification company to help me, and it seems like we've done nothing. And it turned out that they had hired this company several months ago, and so they didn't realize that the foreclosure process continues. So you've got to really look at your situation, look at who's helping you, do some investigation work on your own, even call the bank to check up on the other company. How's my loan modification going? What is in my file? What's on your computer screen at the bank, to make sure things are moving forward, or else it's going to be so close to the foreclosure date that you may be between a rock and a hard place.
In areas like yours in California and mine in Arizona, short sales are going to be around for a while. These houses are just so far underwater, losing 50% or more of their value, that I think a lot more agents are going to look at getting involved in short sales. What would you advise a new agent who's looking to get involved in short sales?
Well, that's a great question. New agents will require training. They will, I would say, working with a mentor, someone more experienced with short sales, maybe joining a team, being, a second agent on some short sale transactions. Certainly since we do short sale negotiations for agents as an administrative outsourced activity for agents throughout California and beyond, we are a great person to hire in a situation like that to provide that sort of support, because we provide coaching as well. But going in cold turkey is not, you may not, unfortunately, be able to strategize in the way that more sophisticated and experienced short sale agents would be able to. They do require quite a lot of work, and if you're unfamiliar with the process, it can be tough.
Do you at all worry about potential lawsuits down the road from these short sale files, or do you think it's going to be a problem for a lot of agents in our industry?
Well, I think that's an interesting question, and nobody can predict too closely, exactly what the future is going to hold. I think the most important thing is to really, really review those short sale approval letters when you obtain them. Make sure the client reviews them, seeks the advice of an attorney. With regard to deficiency judgments and promissory notes, and are those things really going to play out? I think at the end of the day, that all depends on how detail-oriented the bank has been in doing their job, because they say they're going to go after you, but if they've got 4,000 files in a pile, are they ever going to get to it? Are they ever going to hire an attorney? Who knows?
All right, Melissa, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks again for having me. It was a lot of fun.